Hello everyone, welcome to Learn DAX channel. My name is Siddesh and in this video I am going to start a new series of videos which is scenario based questions in DAX. So in previous of my videos that I've uploaded, I have discussed different functions like calculate, if, switch, coalesce, distinct, values, Countx, Averagex, max, etc. I've also discussed concepts like filter context, row context, context transition. And I just wanted to now that we have learned a few of those functions, that how do these functions work with each other, how do they interact with each other, and how do they solve different scenarios that we might come across when we are working in Power BI on a day-to-day basis. So in order to solve these problems, I am taking a very simple products and sales data, which has 20 rows in case of sales data and 10 rows for products. Now, the reason for using these little data sets is when we are doing something through DAX, it's very easy to manually check if the calculations that we have done are correct or not. That just helps at least me to understand and verify if the concepts that I'm learning is are they foolproof. So I can just verify it manually. And for the purpose of the first video, I am going to take very simple examples. Like first, we are going to calculate total sales for the entire data set. Now, some of you who have been using Power BI for a while know the exact formula that we're going to use in this particular case. So the reason for this video is just to set the ground for the upcoming videos so that whenever we are going to advance with the future videos that we have set some foundation and that these concepts are just going to be something that we can fall back on should there be a case where we are unable to connect the dots. So without further ado, let's get started with the video. Now, the first scenario that we want to find here is we want to calculate the total sales for the entire data set. And it's fairly simple. If you want to find the total sales, first I will calculate the sales amount for each transaction that has happened. So I'll just right click, new column maybe, and I will call it sales amount is equal to price into quantity. So that gives me the sales amount for each transaction that has happened in for the entire data set that we have. Now, just in order to calculate the sales amount for the entire data set, what I'm going to do is just add up this particular sales amount. So it's fairly simple to do that. I can either create a measure or I can just create a calculated column here. Let's go with using a measure. So, and we will also try to implement that with the calculated column so we can verify if what we get is actually correct. So let me just create a new measure. I'll create that in the sales table, or I'll just create a new place where I can create all the measures. So I'll call this all measures. So this is one way that I like to store all the measures in one place so that when I'm working later, I can separate the tables and the measures. So I'll say a new measure, total sales is equal to sum x, sales table, sales price into sales quantity. So if I pull it here, convert it into a card, and let me just change the formatting. Call out value disclaimer, I'll set it to none. So 24,313 is what we get as a total sales. Now if I go back and verify it in the table, let's see what do we get. We should get 24,313. So I'll just create a new column in this case and I'll write total sales amount is equal to sum x sales sales quantity into sales price. Now, before I hit enter, I just want to pause in this moment and just uh, like go back a step and just explain what's happening here. So in this case, we are just multiplying these two particular parameters, which is price and quantity. Whereas in case of a calculated column, we are going to multiply sales quantity and sales price and then aggregate those values and give us a single number, which is going to be the total sales amount. So we should get 24K if our understanding is correct. And is it? Yeah, looks like we are correct. We are correct actually. So the total sales amount for this particular data set is 24,330. So we are done with the first scenario. Now let's move on to the second scenario, which is to determine the average quantity of products sold. So I have discussed the concept of average in previous of my videos. I'll put the link in the description. You can check it out. But it's fairly simple. There's only one function that we use. So quantity of products sold is going to be in this column. So if I just create a new column and I say average quantity, just abbreviate quantity as QTY is equal to average of quantity, sales quantity. So 3.6 is the average sold quantity in this particular case. We can also create the same value through a measure, and I'll quickly show you how we can do that. For that, I'll go create a new measure. I will call it average quantity sold is equal to, let's say, Averagex sales, and it is going to be sales quantity. And if I bring it here and I change it to a card and I change the formatting, 3.6 is what we get. So we can verify it both with using a measure as well as a calculated column that the average quantity sold is 3.6. Now there is another way of verifying it if the value 3.6 for a calculated column and a measure is getting tallied. But what if I want to go even more, like I want to do it manually? So I'll just do one thing, which is I'll create a new calculated column. I'll write total quantity sold is equal to sum quantity. So this will give me the total quantity that is sold. I'll just divide it by 20, which will give me the average. So the total sold quantity is 72. If I quickly pull out the calculator and I divide 72 by 20, that's right, we have verified through three different ways. One is through a measure, a calculated column, and then manually adding up the quantity and then dividing it by the number of sales that have happened, and we get the same value, which is 3.6. So far we are done with two of the scenarios. Now we want to count the number of distinct products sold. So let's get back to the distinct products. So we need the product table in this case. Now it's going to be fairly simple in this case. We just have this particular formula, which is count rows, distinct, and the product name. So in order to do that, I'll just create a new measure, distinct products is equal to count rows, write distinct product name. I'll grab it here, change the formatting, convert it into a card. So there are 10 distinct products, and if we go to the table, we can actually verify it. We just have to like laptop, smartphone, headphones, smartwatch, camera, t-shirt, refrigerator, book, desk chair, and sunglasses. No product is repeating more than once. So there are 10 distinct products. So this was fairly simple and straightforward. Sometimes we also use the count rows values function, and sometimes we use the distinct function. Values is something that is more of a standard way of using or to find the distinct values, because they both return us the same value. The use case where values differs from distinct is when there could be certain values which are not present in the dimension table but they exist in the fact table. In that case, values will give us something that distinct doesn't give us, which is it will create sort of a virtual relationship between the dimension and fact table, and it will point us that okay, there are certain values in the fact table which do not have a direct relationship with the dimension table. If you want to know more about the distinction between distinct and values, I have created a video on that. I'll leave the link in the description, so be sure to check it out. I've explained in detail how those two different functions work. Now let's go on to the next case scenario, which is to calculate the total sales for each product category. Now this is a very interesting scenario. We have different product categories, like we have electronics, we have clothing, and we have furniture and accessories, etc. Now, when the scenario says the total sales for each product category, what it's trying to tell us is okay, take the electronics product category, group it, and then give me the total sales amount. Then take the furniture product category, group it, and then give me the total sales amount. So for this, we are going to use something called as the summarize function. Now again, I have discussed the summarize function in earlier of my videos. So I will leave the link in the description. Be sure to check it out if you find any confusion while we are creating this measure. So we'll quickly create a new measure for it, and I'll explain how we build on to this measure. So I'll write product category sales per product category is equal to summarize. So the first argument is the table. So we are trying to summarize the product category. So I'll refer to the products table. The second argument is by which column am I trying to group? So obviously in this case I'm trying to summarize the category column, which is I have electronics in the product category column. I have appliances, clothing, books, and furniture in the category column. So I am going to group by or summarize by the product category column. Now the third is we have to create a new column, which is going to be the total sales column. And this we have to define explicitly. So within double quotes, I'm going to write total sales. Now I have to give the expression, which is, but how do I calculate the, sales amount? So for that, I will use the sumx function. But now we have the product data in the product table. We have the product category in the product table, but the sales, that data resides in the sales table. So how do I get to that table? So I'll use the related function or related table function to be precise. And the expression is going to be sales price into sales quantity. So I'll use sales price into sales quantity. I close this bracket, I close this bracket, I hit enter, and we have run into an error. The error says that the expression refers to multiple columns. Multiple columns cannot be converted to a scalar value. That's because we have tried to use a measure to build something which should be actually a table. So if I copy this whole thing and instead of trying to create a new measure, what I need to do is I need to insert a new table. So if I go here and I'll paste the whole thing and I hit enter, the error is gone. Now I can pull all those values here. So this is one important thing, that when you're trying to use the summarize function, it cannot be for a measure. It has to be for a calculated table. So I'll bring the product category here and I'll bring the total sales here. I'll just change the formatting. And okay, one thing that we have verified so far is that the total sales was 24,313. So that the total number is correct. Now, what I want to do is I just want to check if for the electronics product item, is this the correct total sales amount, 15,930. So one way I can do that is I can maybe put a filter, or like I don't want to calculate it manually. That's the thing. So if I go here, if I go to the sales table, and if I'm going to go to the products table and then fetch, okay, the product one ID 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5 belong to electronics, then go back to the sales table and then try to find those product IDs and then try to sum them up. I don't want to do that. I want a more elegant way of doing it. So let's just do one thing. Let me create a slicer. So that slicer is going to contain the product category, which I'll pull it from the products table. I'll pull it here. And what I'll do is I'll just increase the font size first. Sorry. I'll increase the font size. I'll change the formatting. Okay. So now 15,390 should be the total sales amount. And I don't want to calculate it manually, but I want to use something that exists within Power BI to come to conclusion that this is the correct number. So this slicer, I'll just select electronics. That will narrow down my selection to the first 5 products, and correspondingly it will narrow down this particular sales table to only those products which belong to the category electronics. Okay, the first thing is done. But I still do not have the total sales amount for the category electronics. So how do I achieve that? Well, we have got one more trick up our sleeves in order to do that. What we can do is, I think we have created something called a sales amount column. Let's see if we can pull it here, and we can then verify that yes, the number that we had calculated, which is 15,390, is actually tallying with this number, which is 15,390. So this is just one quick way of verifying the numbers when you don't want to manually add it up, but use some feature of Power BI to do the heavy lifting for us. So we are done with the first 4 scenarios. Now we want to calculate the total profit for each sale. Now, for the purpose of this demonstration, I don't have a unit cost as such for each product. So profit is essentially, the selling price minus the cost price. But here you only have one price, which is, let's say, the selling price. But I still want to have some profit to show. So this is my way of like a workaround in order to get that profit, which is I will create a new column, and what I'm going to do is I'll say unit price is equal to, let's say, around point 0.7 times or point 0.3 times of the actual price. Now this is just for the purpose of this demonstration that we are assuming that a product which costs 100 rupees is actually the cost to make it or to manufacture it is just 30 rupees. So the profit that we make on it is 70 rupees. And I'm just creating this calculated column for the purpose of this demonstration and to show that if I want to calculate the total profit in this particular case, what I'll do is I'll go back and I'll say total profit. I'll create this calculated column, call it total profit is equal to uh, quantity into price minus unit price. And what we get is going to be our total profit for each of the transaction that happened. So this brings us to at the end of this demonstration, in which I have covered all these 5 different scenarios. Very basic, very simple, something that we just start with in the beginning and then we build upon it. So before ending this video, I just want to say I am attaching the Excel file so you can practice along and just do this thing on your own. And I'm also going to add the links for the summarize and group by function video that I have uploaded and the string and values function that I've already uploaded earlier. And if you find any value from this video, please share it with your friends. If you think that I need some improvement in my delivery or in the videos that I'm creating, please leave your feedback in the comments and I'll be very happy to work on it and improve myself. And like I say at the end of every video, thanks for watching and happy learning.